County Historical Society. Please silence your phones. Make sure you've signed in. If there's an update on your email or your snail mail, please note that in the sign-in sheet. Note dues are due for 2022, $10 per household per year, $50 per household for lifetime membership. Are you receiving your minutes? Is there anybody having trouble with their minutes? If you are having a problem, or if you know of someone that is having a problem, let Melissa know and she'll get you straightened out. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Any discussions? Okay, if no corrections, the minutes stand as approved. Treasurer's report, Leah.
We had income in January of about $155 and expenses of $130. We paid for our Christmas hams. We gave out 2 hams at the Christmas errand in December. So we have a balance of $3,239.95 in our money market, and our CD is unchanged at $11,356.45.
Okay.
If you haven't paid your dues, I'll take that.
Are there any questions concerning the treasurer's report? Is there any unfinished business anybody's aware of? Any new business? Donald, would you, is yours new business or old business?
Well, I guess it's a little bit of both and everything, but the World War II program that we're working on, I want to thank Leah. She gave us a list of over 1,300 World War II veterans from Houston County. We've had a lot of information from Susan Gould, and then Pat Bombay are from Dixon County. Gave us some information on the Simpsons. Bamba. Okay, I get it right and everything. Yeah, but she gave us a lot of information on the Simpsons and the Rosses and Miss Marinelle Clemens' husband from that. So
Yes, we
appreciate it.
very much.
Yes.
The new businesses, we are still working on programs for 2022. We have about 4 vacancies if you want to fill any of those. Next month will be March. We support the Irish festivities in the month of March. And I have April open, and I'm looking for a volunteer maybe for a program in April. I did confirm with Bonetta, they will host the May picnic meeting at the McCampbell Pavilion. June, we're meeting with Stewart County. They are hosting us this time there. Be Jim Long is presenting. July, we have Carolyn Farrell that did work on the furnaces. Good book. From Cumberland Furnace. Okay. I have August, September, and October open, so we'll have a little time to work on those. Melissa, would you give us an update from the archives? Yes.
I'll be short because this is my favorite meeting to come to, is the show and tell, so we'll get to it. I have a pretty big announcement for some of you who don't know. That last Monday in January, I can't think of the date, what the date was. I petitioned the county legislative body to change the Houston County Archives name from Houston County Archives to Houston County Archives and Museum. Some of you that have been there know that we have a really good start on a museum. They approved that. Next will be trying to get some funding for some signage to put out to bring people inside the building. Many people don't know what an archives is, but when they see museum, they know what a museum is. Our goal is to get people to come and to visit and to donate and to bring things and share the history of Houston County. So we got that done, so I'm very excited about that. We've had some really great records donations recently. We've also worked on 3 different projects, digitization projects. One of the things that we are offering now is to digitize records, documents, photographs, because we understand that not everybody's ready to let go of their things yet. And so I've worked on one project that's not Houston County related, but it's very interesting. A lady out in Humphreys County bought a home, belonged to the Pruitt family, And she found a treasure trove of documents in the home dating back to 1807. There's a land grant in there from 1796, the year that Tennessee became state. These are all original records, and so she reached out to us, and we are digitizing these for her. Our agreement is that the archives gets to keep a copy, digital copy of the records. We are putting the records in archival sleeves. We're doing an inventory, a catalog of them, and handing them back to her. And then she's going to give us a donation for the archives for the work that we do. So we just, I just finished up digitizing some other records, and we also just, last week, Miss Shirley Hooper, I don't know if anybody knows who Miss Shirley Hooper is, but she brought us a 3-ring binder, probably, I'm gonna guess, between 70 and 100 photographs from Tennessee Ridge. So I started digitizing those today. A lot of the photos I saw were ones I've seen before, but there were some in there that I hadn't seen before, and so those are pretty good. And in my time to share what I brought, I've also got another wonderful project that I'm working on. Comes Clint. Right now, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but I encourage everyone to consider and think about donating records, photographs, artifacts, anything that you might have or find in your homes, in your attics, your basements, belong to your family. And because I know that our children and grandchildren probably are not going to be interested in that. And my fear is that when people pass, that they get the stuff gets thrown away. But if you're not interested in donating, we do have the equipment to digitize. I've gotten grant money. We have 3 different scanners. I just received today our overhead book scanner, so we can now scan and take books. And so we have the equipment now, so we can actually digitize it and then give it back to you. It may take us a little time to do it. You may have to leave it with us for a little bit. But our only thing we ask is that we get to keep a copy of the digital copy. And then you can make a donation to the archives to help us with equipment and materials, because some of the archival materials, like sleeves and things, can be very expensive. So I'm not going to be too much longer because I want to see what everybody brought.
Well, I'm out of order again, but Mr. Ben, would you lead us in the pledge to the flag?
Okay, let's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As many of you know, we sent out requests to the congressmen and presidents and vice presidents and past presidents, and we got a lot of complimentary letters on our 150th anniversary. This past week, we received a congratulations from Jimmy Carter on his stationery, and it is not signed, but we are grateful to have it anyway. The envelope that it was sent in has his signature on it, so that will go to the archives to be.
Yes, yeah, we've got all the rest of them with the others. Still on display, they're still on display. We'll keep them up for a little bit longer.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody needs to talk about until we get to the famous program that we have? And I hope you all enjoy it. I'll just start off first, since I'm already up here. I have inherited boxes of stuff from several of my family members that have passed away. My great aunt was Laura Warden, married George Nolan. Some of you may know him. She and my grandmother were school teachers in the area. In her papers, I found a course of study for the public schools of Cheatham, Houston, Montgomery, and Stewart counties for the year 1920 to 1921. And I'll leave this up for display. Also in her papers, there's an almanac for the year 1912. Most of the stuff is an advertisement, if you have any evidence, by this W.H. Bulls, and iron, so that would cure everything. Everything, yes, just read it. You have this ailment, this is gonna cure you, or kill you. So, when you come up, please stand in the direct line of the camera, and we will have the exhibits available for you to look at after the program. We've got several, so we could be here for a while or not. So, who wants to go first? Jackie.
Because we were searching around for something that was 150 years old, we weren't having a whole lot of luck. But as you know, the Bateman family has lived in the farm on Denmark Road for over 100 years. And about a mile upstream of Brigham Branch, which runs through the farm, is Wilcox Furnace. And that furnace is no longer visible, but it's still there. You can still see the bottom of it and everything. And it was one of 3 furnaces that was in Houston County. And the others were the Union Furnace, which is located on Kaiser Ridge near Lickskillet, and the Eclipse Furnace, which is down toward the lake on Hurricane. But some people believe that the Wilcox Furnace, which is out our way, was built with some of the materials from the Ashland Furnace, which site is about 3 miles away, but it's actually in Stewart County. But the reason to think that Wilcox was part of Ashland Furnaces for the sale of the Ashland Furnace lands. And those lands covered several thousand acres, but they broke it up into tracts, and each tract was broken into lots. So, in the sale, lot 12 of one of the tracts was the Wilcox Furnace tract now. And in that same tract, lot 14 was bought by Mr. Cooley. And that land, over the years, was purchased by Don's grandfather, Paul Bateman. So that's about a mile away from where we live now. And the Wilcox Furnace went out of operation before the Civil War, but the Civil War map that the Union forces made of that area list all or show the location of all the furnaces in Houston County. And so we have a record of where the furnaces were. And the reason the furnaces were located where they were is they were in the areas where the ore was available and where there was a water supply. So it made it easier for them to do their job. And this is what they were looking for. This is iron ore, which we found on our farm there. And I'm going to let Don tell you what they did with it and why we had to bring rocks, because we didn't have anything 150 years old. Yeah.
Well, the Batemans have a trait. When they finish working, they leave their equipment wherever they finished at. And when it got to the point they couldn't fix it and rusted out, couldn't use it anymore, they put it in the ditch for erosion control. So we didn't have a whole lot of stuff to deal with, but it's hard to do a lot of damage to rocks and stuff on that. The slag and stuff, we always knew that we had iron slag, the blue rocks in Brigham Branch when I was a kid. Knew it was from making iron and everything like that. Never really put together that the iron furnace was up there at the site place, or the place that Sam owns up there where Brigham Branch is, come across there, up there with it. But what we have got here, of course, we'll put this back in a box and stuff on this, but we've got some pieces of the slag here that we picked up over the years, and there's just as much slag in the creek now as it was when I was a kid. One of the neatest things that I think we've got is the slag here, and you can still see the charcoal that's embedded in the slag where they come off on that thing. And to be this big is really, really light. And we've also got a little bit of the iron ore that I guess escaped or whatever came down the creek on that. But that's what we brought, and I guess we can just leave it up here or move it over there, is probably what I can do with that and everything. Any questions, or?
As you go to the different places in the county where the really colorful blue rock is, there's no blue rock here in that, or do you have it in the bucket, or do you have it there? Okay.
Yeah, this is slag,
Okay.
and it'll be different colors.
Okay.
And
Some of it is even more colorful than that. But
Right.
that's where did that come from?
Oh, this all came from, it's what's left over after they heated the iron and extracted the iron from it. It's what came off the top of it.
It's a byproduct.
Yes. The way I understand it, the iron, when they heat it, it's heavier, it goes to the bottom, and they take this off. This is the top that they rake off the impurities and stuff. And I'm no expert on iron furnace, but that's just my understanding of it. And then this stuff, they didn't need it, and they just left it up there, and over the years, it's broken up, washed down the creek. And like I said, I guess we're probably 1.5 miles from where the actual furnace is at. The base is still there. If you drive through Denmark Road, you can still see the base of the furnace over there with it.
What does the term rock to do with slag?
Okay, and now, to me, you've got to have your iron ore, which is rock, sedimentary rock most of the time, and slag is a byproduct of that.
Burning?
Yeah, in other words, it's what comes off at the top. I'm gonna tell you, you've got one.
I'm a ridge runner.
Yeah, you got one.
Everybody carries
Yeah.
his leg.
And I think there was a furnace
Our
down there.
badge of honor,
Yeah.
ridge runner.
Did that come from Eclipse, or do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, because there was one on Hurricane Creek. Wasn't that Eclipse Creek?
I believe so.
And then we've got one. I don't know that there's any rocks left down there on Lickskillet, Kaiser Ridge, on Union. That's pretty well, there's not anything left down there on that site.
The location down at Brownsville, which I used to see those blue rocks like that. You know where I'm
Blue what?
Is on near where Brownsville Resort was.
Yeah, but I heard you say blue rock.
Well,
Yeah.
blue whatever.
Yeah,
Flag?
it's a rock to me.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what.
Is that one of those sites that you were talking about?
Well, I'm not sure where exactly is that at, man.
I don't know, we used to deer hunt down there, and there was a pond kind of place, so
Do you know, Greg?
Well, we were talking about that earlier, going down Brownsville, actually, can't remember how far it was, but on the left, there's a big pit, well, it was a lake, a big pond, it was pretty clear, wasn't it? And I don't know if that was a pit where they were mining the ore out, or if it was close to where they had the furnace themselves, I don't.
Is that in Stewart County?
Yeah.
It's Stewart.
Yes, that's in Stewart County, and the
Okay.
railroad that ran from, see, Tennessee Ridge had 2 railroads. The second railroad went to Bear Springs to bring the pig iron, put it on the main track. The same thing happened at Danville, and the railroad track ran parallel with the river and went to Stribling's, the name of that furnace.
Right, this is,
okay.
Strickland's
So
on
it-
Leatherwood side, over on Leatherwood.
Well, one of those, that's how they got their iron ore. I always wondered why they put it on the railroad instead of putting it on a barge. But that's why those 2 railroads were built.
I knew there was a railroad.
Justify the railroad. This pit
There's two
is
different
north of
roads too,
that.
the L and N and Nashville, Chattanooga.
North of Leatherwood.
Two separate.
It was the same track.
I guess it's where you were saying there were 3 in
Oh, there's
Houston
two
County, and I
railroad
guess
tracks
I'm
going across
confusing.
Tennessee River.
That would have been in
Like I said,
Stewart
the L and N
Yes,
ran
Strickland,
up to,
Strickland would have been
Harrison.
north of the county line.
On the
Chattanooga,
west, the 2 railroads I'm talking about, going north and south. The Danville Station, Tennessee Ridge Station,
See,
they
did you
swapped
bring
the
it?
car below and put it on the main track.
He,
Either one
Sad,
of you.
still can't stand at Bear Springs. You know, I thought that's strictly, they put it on a barge.
What I have brought, probably some of you seen, probably some of you haven't, that's hundreds of years old. When L and N built a railroad track through here in Houston County, they had switches for trains, you know, they, one going one way and one other, and they had switches. They had these locks on them. They had a guy in the front, a guy in the back. When a train was going north, each one's coming south, going to get over the side track. They had a switchman to get out. He'd unlock this lock right here. Where the rail would move over, they could go in there, and he'd go all the way down the side track. And on the tail end, when it got through there, they got a guy to get off. He'd switch the rail back over to where there's on the main line, see? Every switchman had a lock like this, had a key. This is not just like an ordinary key, this is a push key. It's got a slit in it right here, and you push it, and it flips that thing open. Like that right there. And the reason it's made out of brass is because an iron one would rust, and they couldn't open it. Trains would have to suit it. But every switchman had a key, and every switch had a lock on it like this right here on both ends. They had switches in here, they had switches in Tennessee Ridge, Stewart, and McKinnon, and you're talking about that spur line down there at Danville that went down to the iron ore pits down there. Yeah, that's a different kind of line down through there. I've got a spike or two that come from the mouth of Hurricane down there off the old railroad bed. But these right here, I don't know how many of you people have ever seen one of them, but it's got a road on the front of it. L&N Railroad Company.
When did it go, the first train run through here, you can see?
When the first one run through, probably about 18 and 10.
1861, just before the Civil War. 2 weeks.
I didn't really know.
Those of you who don't know me, I'm a man of few words. This is not gonna take long. Sure. The first two talking about rocks. There is tons of difference in slags and rock. And us ridge runners carry our badge on. Everybody, all of us kids, talk about it. Now, well, being a ridge runner and moving to Danville area, I learned from Frank Cherry and Booker the muscle industry to drag along the river bottom or area to attach the muscles, accumulate to do whatever they did with them, make buttons or whatever they did with muscles. Soup, I don't know. Anyway, oddly, I found these little braille pieces at Tennessee Ridge. They didn't float up there. So how they got there is anybody's wonder. And they were attached to a little other piece of wire that I was just told is probably not part of the braille feature itself. It was just something that was holding it together. But something had to drive it. I remember as a kid, going to the Tennessee River area with a, it was laid off on mine now, and he would go through these mounds of mussel shells and dig out what was left of the mussel as fish bait. Stunk. But anyway, that was the gist of the mussel braille that would attach, somehow or another they would attach on these things. And I'm sorry that Frank Cherry is not here to give the exact detail of how these things work. Now, another thing about the switchman, you hit a thing about railroading. Me being me and
Those rails was attached on a rod about this long and it's ever so far apart, like this right here. They had a drag line that come down, and these guys in these boats that drag down the bottom of the river, and the mussels, when it's on the bottom, they was wide open. But when that braille would come across there and hit one of them, it closed down on that thing right there, and then they put on the guys doing the mustard would come over there, they'd build up a big fire, they'd have to heat these things to open them up and get the meat out of them. And like you said, they mostly made buttons out of them. They used to have a muscle button place up at Clarksville right there behind Austin Peay College.
Took the words right out of my mouth, I told you. Nevertheless, and about railroading, my dad being a switchman, had tons of these blocks laying around. Supposed to have been around our house, but us kids traded them, got rid of them. But that was very interesting.
Okay, well, look here, you see what this boy's got right here? There's a muscle shield right there. It's been punched out. Made buttons out of it.
So,
No, that this
so
is
how,
actually.
I understand that, but how, let me ask you, is this one shell?
One half of a shell.
Okay, so that would open up, and this,
This way it is right
and
there.
then this, and they would open up, and somehow they would they clamp down?
Yeah, they just clamp down on it.
Did you ever get a chance to stick your finger in an open clamshell dome?
Where did the braille come in about
They had to give it a name for something.
Introduce yourself.
it? They couldn't see
They
it?
could have
Hi, I'm Eli
called it a
Stone.
muzzle
Okay.
tapper.
They couldn't see it, so they just like,
No, they had, that thing had to run.
These are out of Clarksville, not here, but one of my customers was just walking down the street when they had everything tore up, and there's a 1820s about house up on the top of the hill. And he pulled all of these out and salvaged them, but they're all shells that got punched out for button material, and I'm not sure when, but I know that house was, the farm was operating up late 1800s. They stopped and started putting houses around it, but these all just perfect bolts, and I have no idea how they did it. I haven't gotten into researching that yet, but just a really, really neat piece of history that was some old stuff. So I'll leave these.
What street was that on?
Madison Terrace is where the farmhouse would have been that they were cut for. And Traherne Terrace, the next one down on
Okay,
Madison
yeah.
Street, is where these got pulled out of.
It's funny they would keep them after the.
They chucked them out into the yard
Yeah.
and were tilled in, which was great. The lime
threw
in the
them
shell
away.
should be good for the soil,
Yeah.
but they didn't deteriorate too much, and so they're just all over that area underneath that house, which I can't, there's a name for it, but it's a beautiful house, and we found all sorts of stuff going around in those houses right there. I've got a whole pile of things that actually came out of the Stagecoach house over off 149 over there. And yeah, I can bring them up.
Those are pretty unique, folks. I've been around mussel shells my whole life. I've never seen any with the holes knocked out like that.
Thank you, Clint. Well, here, I'll pop this out actually, because this was another Clarksville find that I accidentally found when someone on Union Street got their porch removed. And there's another, it's a shell, but it was a belt buckle. And that's same stuff, see-through broken, but just a neat piece there. So let's start at the beginning. That is a barrel tap or spout. It had a removable key here that the Stagecoach, whoever was running it, I'm guessing, and had control of the keg, would have kept it with them. But that dates back 1700s, late 1700s, mid somewhere in there, and was found 10 feet away from the house over there, 3 inches under the dirt for couple hundred years. So that's a neat one. Here's drop 1820 capped bust dime that was found on that property, which is in really good condition for sitting that long. A pretty piece. There's a prize, just a 4-leaf clover brooch that was in the front yard. Beat down dandy button that has seen a little bit of, that's probably late 1700s, early 1800s, somewhere right in there. That would have been from most of this right here is the earlier side of that property, having a house on it. There's a couple spear heads have been pulled out of that one, which is always cooler than finding something metal. I've got no way of dating this, but that's a military button. So everything I found that has the similar patterns on it was Civil War era. And so that's general service of some sort. And I guess here's the last one that I'll show off, and it's a class ring from Clarksville High, 1926, that has initials. I just haven't found the roster from graduating class of 26 yet. So that's got hit by a mower or something, but another item that was 5 feet away from the porch on that house. But I'll leave this open on the table, and anybody that wants to dig around in it, it's all just fun treasures. Thanks.
Yeah.
Leave it here or take it back?
You want to be next?
Is that okay?
That's wonderful.
Any objection? Any objection?
No.
Well, I'm John Edmondson. My mom grew up then. She graduated Eastern County High School in 1945. I brought a stereoscope. Put that card in there with the pictures. It's 2 of them. And you adjust it and see it in 3D. And put the picture under the light. It's really cool. And a lot of those photographs, or some of them are dated 1901. Now this is a cookbook, National, get there, the National Cookbook, Lady of Philadelphia, 1856. This was given to my great-grandfather, Samuel Irvin Edmondson, by Aunt Martha Mayhew. This is really, y'all can look at this, you can't hurt it, it's already all to pieces. Here's something called Indian loaf cake. 1 pound of Indian meal, I'm thinking that's cornmeal. What do y'all think? 1/4 pound of butter, 2 eggs, 1/2 pound of sugar, 1/4 pound of raisins, and 1/4 pound of currants. Now there's something in here called, and I lost it. It talks about egg yolks, Y-E-L-K, 1 egg yolk and 2 whites. I set this over, put this down here, y'all look through it, it's really interesting. It talks about sweet milk. So much of sweet milk.
Has that been scanned in?
No.
Okay.
But y'all look at that stereoscope. That was a big deal back in the day.
What years are we talking about the stereoscope?
Well, some of the photographs are dated 1901. that was before radio, and then, you know, it's got pictures of Holland and the San Francisco earthquake.
High tech at the time.
It was. We were kids, we loved that. All right, thank you.
Who wants to go next? Ms. Walker?
A good friend of mine in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Margaret Hutton, she passed away. Well, we've been here 19 years, and she gave me this, I guess, about 40 years prior to that. Anyway, she's way over 100 years old, I'm sure, when she, you know, now that she's passed. But I just thought that was the neatest little thing, because it's so different. Then this is just a little doll that I picked up. Back then, they had porcelain dolls that were like glass. This was my grandmother's quilt. I tried to find the pattern, but I'm not sure what it is. I think it would be one of the Amish types of patterns, but I don't know. It was a great big quilt, but it was falling apart. So I said, well, I'll just take that apart and make a little quilt for my little stroller. I've enjoyed having it because I like antiques. Thank you. Thank you. Sweep that direction. Might as well.
This came out of the Walker family, there's a ring in here. And it was given to me by a cousin, and it had been passed down to him, but like all the rest of us, he said his kids wasn't interested in it at all. And before he passed away, he gave it to me. I'm gonna read what's written here. This was written by Edith Walker. Some of y'all might remember Lorraine Powers, where she lived. Well, her uncle, Walter Walker, moved into the house next to her, lived there till he passed away. Edith was his daughter. She'd be well over 100 now. But anyway, this ring, I'm gonna read you what she wrote. Great-grandfather Walker, Bob Walker, was in the Civil War at Fort Donelson. When the war was over there, in other words, when they fell, he was taken prisoner to Chicago. The fellow in prison made this out of a fairly perchant art shower. Okay, that is something like plastic, but it was made from South American tree. Someone there made all the prisoners a ring. They wouldn't have anything else to do. There's little silver flakes in it. And that was, it was 1860. He stayed there, and they decided to swap prisoners from the north and south. They moved him to Louisiana. Then they woke up and said, you know, we got all the people we need, and the South doesn't. Well, they're going to swap in more prisoners in. He remained in Louisiana at the end of the war, but he, or his mother doesn't. When the war's over, there's him and another person from Stewart County, and they open the door and said, boys, get home the best way you can. So that's it. And this is signed by Edith Walker, and she made a note here, Fort Donelson fell February the 16th, 1962. And again, the rain's in here. He was a farmer all his life, and I'm assuming a hard worker, but that ring is so small, it just fell on my small finger. So it's amazing how small his hand was. Leave it up here.
Do you have anything? Mr. Hagler, do you have something you brought to show?
my mother made for me. That my mother made for me when I was probably 2 or 3 years old. So it's gotta be 85 years or more old. But she made it, had those gold buttons on it, but only one of them left. It must have been real gold, somebody sold it. But I could have been more than, what, 2 or 3 years old. Yeah. Still hanging.
Still fit?
Still fit.
Yeah, still fits on one hand. That's all.
Well, it's cute. I brought a couple of things from my husband's family. Many of you know I'm not from here. I've lived here for 34 years, but not really from here. But my husband's family is all from here. We live on property that we're the 5th generation to live on that property, the Barker property. And my husband's 3rd great grandfather was Jesse Glasgow. He lived most of his adult life in Cumberland City. He was born in 1816 and died in 1892. He was in the Civil War. He actually served with the Union Regiment, the 83rd Illinois. When I didn't understand about a lot of things about the Civil War, I didn't understand why he went to Illinois to join the Union Regiment. But I came to find out after getting his records and doing more research that he actually joined the 83rd Illinois when they were at Fort Donelson. So they came to him. But I have one of his original pension documents. This is not on paper. This is actually fabric. So it's very interesting. He's a very interesting gentleman to research. I think he had a real interest in education because he gave money to the Cumberland City Academy. If anybody knows about the Cumberland City Academy that was in Cumberland City. His son actually died during the Civil War. And I believe, I haven't proven it, but I believe that he paid for his grandson, Dr. Glasgow, some of you might know, because he was a doctor here in Houston County, to go to Vanderbilt University to become a doctor. He died young in 1910, 1911. But I brought that one. And I also brought this original receipt. This is a Houston County connection. E.E. Collison Jr. was a very well-known photographer in Houston County at the time. This is dated September 29, 1886. It actually talks about him purchasing a photograph. Now, to my knowledge, there's no known photograph of Jesse Glasgow. There is one of his grandson, Dr. Glasgow. So this is E.E. Collison Jr., and he had a photography studio here in Houston County. Was it his grandson that invented the like a knee replacement something or other? Yeah. Yeah, there's a book about it. So I'm constantly in the archives looking for E.E. Collison photographs because usually his photography studio is on the photograph. So the other one thing I brought just kind of for fun. This is an original document from June the 9th, 1888, where Jesse Glasgow purchased a Louisiana lottery ticket. Again, being naive in my early times when I was doing research, I could not understand when he went to Louisiana to purchase a lottery ticket. And it even says Cumberland City, Tennessee on here. And his lottery number's on the bottom. But the more I did research, the more I figured out that the Louisiana lottery advertised in the local newspaper, in the Clarksville newspaper. And so he could go to the post office and purchase his lottery ticket, which that's probably what he did. And they would also publish the winning lottery numbers. But if you want to go down a rabbit hole and research something very fascinating, just Google Louisiana Lottery 1888 when you go home. It was a lottery that was operated by 2 Civil War generals, General Beauregard and General Early. And it was very controversial. They did some very not so good things. So if you want to read about a very interesting thing in history, Louisiana Lottery, 1888. So that's from my personal archive. This other is not very old, but I'm sharing with you because I just received it this week, and it's a project I'm actually working on. I've been working on some research on the Hensley School. It's an African-American school that was here in Erin. It was actually, I'm 99.9% sure it was built in 1927 to 1928 with a particular fund called the Julius Rosenwald Fund. It's another interesting story if you want to Google that one. Julius Rosenwald was a Jewish white man. He lived until 1932. He teamed up with Booker T. Washington and built African-American schools with his own money in 15 southern states, Tennessee being one of them. And I have been able, like I said, I'm looking for a little more evidence that the Hensley School was a Julius Rosenwald school. It was built with some of those funds. We have actual documentation where the actual schools were stopped being built in 1932 when he died. But after that, they still have the fund. And so I have actual documentation from the Board of Education where the schools received books and they got some other funding from the fund. And so I actually found at the Tennessee State Library and Archives a couple of new to me photographs of the Hensley School. And I just received them by email this week. And so here is one. We have one that's in the pictorial history book, but it's very fuzzy. But these are very good photographs. These were taken by the State Department of Education to document rural poor schools. And so these photographs are at Tennessee State Library and Archives. Here's another one. This one is from 1939. This one is from 1941. Like I said, I just got them in my email this week. And then I also got this one of the Stewart School from 1939. And this one, I have seen a version of this one. This one is also from 1939. This is the old high school that was on the hill.
I went to that one.
You went to that one? And then the last one I got was this one. This is also 1939. This is Griffith's Chapel School. So there's another set of photographs that I've requested. I don't know what schools they are of, but I'm waiting to get those back, so. I'll put these here. Yeah. That's it.
Now, mine really doesn't pertain to Houston County, because as y'all know, I gave most of my stuff to the archives. I had trouble finding some. I found this in my grandmother's room, and this was published in 1903. The author is the guy that created the Gibson book, and it is called 80 Drawings, Including the Weaker Sex. And it's kind of interesting. It must have been given to my grandmother was born in 1898, so she was 5 when this was published. So it may have been her mother's, and she may have brought it from Philadelphia. That I do not know, but it's really interesting the way they depicted women back in the time. And I think it's trying to say that the women are making the men the weaker sex. There's funny pictures in there. So if y'all want to look at this, I will leave it up here. But I thought it was kind of cool.
This powder horn that belonged to my great-grandfather, William Amos Reynolds. He was a Civil War veteran. He fought at Fort Donelson. This is the Methodist Church in 1874. he became a minister in the Methodist Church. And like I said, he was a minister, and it has some primitive scrimshaw on it, even has fish on it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I'll set it right there. Try not to drop it.
What's it made of? What's it made of?
Does anyone know what a powder horn was made out of? It's made out of cow horn. The cow horns, I told you, I have a dehorner, belonged to Mr. W.B. Summers down on White Oak. I have a dehorner that he had. And back then you had a lot of cattle that had horns on, and they would cut the horns off. And they were valued for, if they were real pretty, they were valued for powder horns and also blowing horns, where hunters would call their dogs in. Had a lot of fox hunters and hood hunters.
Showtime. Good evening, everyone. Listen, when you need some items to show, at my house, all I gotta do is go back in my late mother's back bedroom and open up the trunk. She got plenty to show. I found one really, I thought, unusual piece. I brought all kinds of stuff, but I'll keep that for later. Get this. The piano recital, the pupils of Miss Janie Satterwhite, here in elementary school, April the 29th, 1957. It's got the song they're gonna sing, and also, I guess, the author of the song or the composer, but this got the names. And I wanna read the names. I bet it's gonna ring some of y'all's bells. It's quite a few of them, but I'm gonna do it. Sherry Avery, Sheila Brooks, Freddie Lyle, Ann Sine, Sheila Martin, Billy Sid Vincent, Mary Nan Richardson, Patricia Lewis, Gene Sinks, Kenneth Brooks, Joe Sinks, Henrietta Hegler, Nancy Vincent, Judy Fazale, Francis Godry, Paige Price, Kathy Alsabrooks, Aloma Sine, Janie Roby, Bill Brigham, Nancy Bateman, Paulette Baggett, Chloe Beasley, Dick Littleton, Donna K. Sykes, Sharon Lewis, Linda Knight, Eugene Waller, Rose Garrett, Ann Austin, Gwendolyn Avery, Joan Knight, Mildred Bateman, Bruce Fazale, William Beverly Price, and Wanda Glenn Spurgeon, and ran it out as Jane Smith. Had quite a few piano players in Eastern County, didn't we? Several of them.
What year was that?
1957. 57. Who remembers Miss Janie Satterwhite? Does that ring any bells with anybody?
Absolutely, I went to school with every one of them kids.
That's why I want to be good to read, to ring y'all's bells.
That's why somebody recognized I was 80 years old.
They're too small. I wish they had the date on it. This is a blue ribbon and a red ribbon from, I guess, the fair, Maryland Lyle, for making quilts. I don't know what year, I wish it had what year it was, but that's, okay. Okay, now this kind of hits home for me. Back in the early 70s, when I was a young man, there were two junior pro teams here and here. There was the Houston County Cardinals, and we wore the same outfits like the pro teams, and the Houston County Vikings, and wore Vikings outfit. Okay, I played for the Cardinals for 2 or 3 years later, and he got a letter at the end of it. He got a letter, junior pro football team, or it's kind of like, these things I'd like to donate to listen to all these things. They're better with you than they are sitting home in the trunk. Right? Okay. Show this right here. Also, I found part of I was one of the original leprechauns back in the early 60s. And this is my shillelagh, I must have used on somebody. It's broke all the pieces. Yeah, of course. Now, we went up the first St. Patrick's Day, we went to promote it. Okay, I was on the noon show with Judd Collins as the host. That ringing bells? Judd Collins. Teddy Bart came later. Okay, but I was on the Bozo show twice. That's a big difference. Everybody watches Bozo. Here's my hat. And little belt buckles that you put on your shoes. But okay, and what this is, I don't know. Some kind of shamrock, I guess, hanging around your neck. But I had an outfit, I remember, you know, a green, all the kids dressed up like that. That's part of it. And let's see, rounding it out, this is, I got some more things, but I thought that'd be too long, so I'm gonna do that next time. Oh, yeah. Okay. Houston County Times, 1965. And here's two of Dan's cousins, Patricia Mitchell and Albert Mitchell, and Miss Sherry Presley, but all these are about my age. Sherry Presley, Mr. O.C. Presley's daughter, if that rings any bells, the president of Aaron Bank and Trust. There you go. Let's see. That about rounds it out, I guess, but I thought it was interesting, you know. Make sure you bring my lady back with me. Thank you. I'll keep the rest for next time.
I have a Bible that was given to my grandfather, B.B. McKinnon Buren, by his mother, Lola D. Sykes, when he entered the Army in 1918. Well, he was born the same year grandmother was, 1898, so I'm assuming he didn't join the Army till he was 20. He carried, the Bible was given to soldiers in World War I, and the theory was that if they wore it in their pocket and were ever shot, it would stop a bullet from going in their heart. So it has the hard cover on it. And I had always been told that it saved Pappy's life. Well, anybody that knows Pappy's knows he's always got tall tales. And the note that Dad has in here said that this was given to B.B. McKinnon by his mother when he entered the Army in 1918, World War I. If carried in the pocket over the breast, it could possibly stop a bullet and save a soldier's life. It was claimed to have been so maybe more than once. B.B. was never in combat. So it's just a small pocket Bible, and the print is very, very small, but it is a complete Bible. I think just the beginning pages are starting to come out and the last one, but apparently it didn't have a whole lot of use, maybe, I don't know. But this was from 1918, given to my grandfather. Thank you.
Somebody set a record for the number of people that went to it, I think, in Ireland. I didn't know which one to bring out first. It'll be a little teaser to do. Now, can anybody tell me where that came from?
Sound like Tennessee Ridge Post Office.
Well, that's a pretty good guess. Supposedly, I bought this in an auction, and my great uncle was involved in his auction that they were selling his stuff. That's supposedly the bell from the Erin Hotel. And
I got a wash stand from the Aaron Hotel.
that probably came from the same sale that they had in Tennessee Ridge.
No, it came out of the dump.
Really?
Dad found it at the dump.
I bought a set of books out of that same sale, and it came from my great uncle's library, who was A.R. Boone. His wife was my great aunt, who was Elvira Boone. And I have 40 of these, and these are James Fenimore Cooper, who was a pretty popular writer during that same time period. And most people are familiar with James Fenimore Cooper because he wrote The Last of the Mohicans. And the character in The Last of the Mohicans was who?
Hawkeye.
Well, Hawkeye's one of them, that's right. Natty Bumppo, y'all remember that? Anyway, there's 32 of those books in that series, which I have all of them, and I was real proud of these, and I still am real proud of these. And I thought I had something really valuable. They're not first editions. These, the original story was written in the 1700s, like 1757, and they were published a number of times. And because they were really popular, there were a lot of them printed. And so I still thought, well, I've got something special because they're all, so I did a little research about that. How much do you think those books, which these books are not dated, but they had to have been printed sometime, at least around the turn of the century, 1900. And like I said, I have a full set if anybody's really interested in it. And most of them have it, somewhere in there they have W.R. Boone, the W.R. Boone Library, which was in the house on Main Street here in town. It's where they came from, but they were, all of these books, I think, my Aunt Elvira and my great uncle, they ran the Houston County, the Erin Hotel for a while. And they were probably in the library in the hotel. And so they were pretty well used, I think, at that one time. So they're not just in fair condition. But I've got a bunch of them. And, but I did the research, I thought, well, I've really got something valuable. I found out the prices range from everywhere from $2.50 a piece. If you got a full set, they might bring $150. Unless you happen to come across a first edition, which they think you might get $13,000 for it, but they're not first editions. But I still like them, and y'all are welcome to look at them. And I don't mind you handling them because they've been handled a lot. The one that's in the worst shape is the Last Oak Bone, which probably was the most popular of those. In the same series, there's the Deerslayer, and there's a whole bunch of Deerslayer and the Pathfinder and the Redskins, which is politically incorrect now. But that's my story.
The Erin Hotel's where Paul's Pizza was, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I don't know, the Erin Motel, do you know where it was originally located?
Yes. Yes. Where the drugstore is.
Right across the street from where the drugstore was.
That was a railroad hotel.
And they put it, they jacked the hotel up on rolling pins and rolled it over to where Lewis was located. It's not there. And one horse supposedly pulled it all the way down there, and when they got down there, the horse had a heart attack and died.
They said they ate breakfast at one place and ate lunch at the other. That's a joke. Judy Black did a sketch of that.
Yeah. People may, I used to have a little, I've got a copy of that somewhere. But anyway, that's my question. As quick as my stories ever get.
I actually didn't know what I was getting into. I'm here to present for somebody else, Jackson McKinnon here. Hunter brought something else. I think y'all like this. This was found in Houston County. And I'm actually McKinnon. I actually found this with my father. This was found in the Tennessee Ridge area. I sent it some pictures off to Dixie Gun Works. They're pretty familiar with guns. And so this is what they call a box lock. And the cool thing about it is if the hammer is cocked and there's a bullet still inside of it. So it's all there except the little wooden handle. I think it's about 18. I got a date about 1840 on this, probably definitely before the Civil War. It was found right outside of a cemetery, which is kind of interesting. So I think some duels might have been had some right outside of cemeteries, close to the spot there. So the hole's still in it for the fire and everything. So it's called a box lock, about 1840. It's pretty common. It might have been during the Civil War era that he said it was not a military issued guns, but they didn't issue only officer guns, I think, in the military and Civil War. So all of your other guys would have had their home revolvers in their pockets. So that's a box lock, and I leave it up there, like I said, it's found in Houston County here, and so it's kind of cool, and my dad found it, so.
What story he would tell me about.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll see if the powder fits right in the hole.
From this headlight, just to throw out the light, it's actually a bicycle headlight around the turn of the century, and it runs on calcium carbide with water, and you adjust the valves where the water drips from the calcium carbide, and it produces acetylene, and it's really a bright light. A lot of times you've seen them, miners have used them, or on caps with a big mirror. But that's what this went on a bicycle, so you could ride your bicycle at night. And I've seen a lot of big railroad hammers over the years from where they've been driving the spikes, but the other day I found this. Evidently, L&N also had carpenters that's engraved the L&N railroad.
Anybody else? Scott, do you want to show anything else?
Well, we'll say that next
Well,
time.
you brought it, so we've got time.
No, wait, I just say that.
Oh, okay. Well, we appreciate everything everybody brought, and if there's no more discussion, we will adjourn. And feel free to ask questions to the people that brought the stuff, and we'll see you in April.